What's going on, Dolphins fans? Kyle Krabs, your host here on Locked On Dolphins. You know the deal. It's power to the pod. Anything and everything that you want to talk about your 2-0 Miami Dolphins. We're talking about it here today on the show. It's the Mailbag episode. We do it every week. So let's go ahead and dive right in here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, guys? Kyle Krabs, your host here on Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Dolphins your first Miami Dolphins listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. It's the Mailbag episode. We have a phenomenal week this week, by the way. We have today's Power to the Pod. We obviously had Game Reaction Victory Monday, all 22 film review on Tuesday, Power to the Pod today. Tomorrow is Crossover Thursday and also bonus episode meeting up with Joe Rose. So you're getting 2 episodes tomorrow, and you are going to get 2 episodes on Friday. You are getting 7 episodes of Locked On Dolphins this week, Monday through Friday. So plan accordingly. There's a lot of content coming. And why is there a lot of content coming? Well, it's because of all of you. I want to thank all of you. Locked On Dolphins is off to the hottest start to a week in the history of the show. Monday was our most downloads we've ever logged. And the excitement about this team is palpable. You can feel it. You can feel it on social. And we will, of course, talk about the dynamics of the game that looms this weekend at Hard Rock Stadium. We will not do that unless it comes up in Power to the Pod because you guys are talking about what we want to talk about today. But we will be doing that extensively the rest of the way. Let's go ahead and dive in. Let's jump right into Power to the Pod, all the things that you want to talk about. We have them flagged. We have some reviews from last week that were left before the Baltimore game. We also have reviews with questions from after the Baltimore game. So we've got a good palette to choose from here. The first one that I wanted to acknowledge comes from, and this is what I get for scrolling. I'm going to start at the top. Halvosa. I've learned more about football listening to Kyle every day than I have a fan for 50 plus years. Oh my goodness. James, thank you so much. It's a great question. It's a phenomenal compliment that you've paid me. Kyle, seems like we aren't getting pressures and sacks at the same pace as last year. Is it coaching talent or simply sample size? Also, what's with X? You never see him get beat like Bateman beat him. Has he lost a step? Loyal listener, James. Yeah, I know I went on WQAM this morning and was asked about the pass rush and what's there and what's not there. And the Dolphins' talent's too good. I understand the lack of volume for your pressures. I also don't think the Dolphins are true zeroing right now at the same rate that they are. And why would that be? Well, to run zero aggressively and assertively like the Dolphins have in years past, you got to trust your corners to play on islands. And so I'm curious how much of the absence of Byron Jones at least contributes to Miami's lack of appetite to really play double birds football and say, hey, we're coming. So strap up. They haven't brought too much of that at this point. I also think there are bright flashes. I mentioned Jalen Phillips yesterday as a player who everybody's looking at the box score and is concerned about, but you see the wins on tape that's either there's not complimentary rush around him, so he gets off his spot, or the quarterback gets off his spot and you can't finish a play, or you draw a penalty and they don't call a penalty. Oh, pressure and effective pass rush has to complement itself. And I think the sample size is the biggest thing that, like, I'm not pushing the panic button yet. But we all know, like, this weekend for the game that you're going to have to play, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to be more effective pressuring the quarterback than what you have been in the first 2 weeks. That's a big hurdle for the Dolphins. As far as Xavien Howard, look, Rashad Bateman, give him credit. He ran 2 phenomenal routes. The first route was it was an outbreaking pattern where he stemmed it really well and manufactured a large throwing window and snapped it off the top. And Bateman, second fastest GPS time last week for all NFL players on that catch and run, that 75-yard touchdown reception. It's a really nice route. It's a really nice route against press, and X didn't get hands on. I don't think that he's necessarily lost a step. I think you tip the cap. You give credit where credit's due. You understand the middle of the field was open. And I bet if Xavien had that rep to do over again, he probably would have got hands on Rashad Bateman and forced him off of his route stem a little bit more assertively than what he did. X kind of opened the hips to the perimeter. I thought maybe a little prematurely. And if he's going to come back across you like that, you'd like to be a little bit more square so you can either flash and react or, be a little bit more assertive and handsy. And you saw that with Darius Slay versus Justin Jefferson on Monday Night Football. Slay had a lot of success defending Justin Jefferson because he was able to get hands on Jefferson and play physical, right? So I think that's something that on that individual rep, X didn't get hands on. Sometimes you get the bear and sometimes the bear gets you. Eddie, thank you, Eddie. I was going to try to say your username, and he smelled it coming a mile away. Apparently, I'm getting quite predictable here in year 3 with Locked On Dolphins. And said, my name is Eddie, if it makes it easier. Not really a question, but an observation. This week's game was amazing, and I wanted to shout out Alec Ingold. 2 in the receivers are getting most of the press, but Ingold needs some attention. He seemed like he was out in front of every big play, throwing blocks and helping spring the playmakers. I feel like he was the most underrated signing that we made this offseason. And in this offense, he is pivotal, and we are lucky to have him. I hope McDaniel gets some TD runs to pay him back for sacrificing himself all game long. Talk soon. You are absolutely right. And I remember going down to camp, and I wrote this story for Draft Network. I think it was the second day I was at camp. And Ingold was still in a red practice, like non-contact jersey. And I'm watching Ingold and all the ways that they're using him and knowing this offense and how the 49ers weaponized Kyle Juszczyk. And it's like the writing's on the wall, man. Like this guy is going to be an impact player for the Dolphins. And you're absolutely right. He is the way that they will come out in 2-back sets and line him up at H-back, line him up fullback, line him up in the backfield, line him up on the outside, run tunnel screens. Like, it's really, really fun to see all the ways he pops up. And you are absolutely right. He is downfield springing some dudes for explosive plays. And Alec Ingold, an unsung hero, but in the same way that Mac Hollins last year was kind of like the folklore hero of the Dolphins offense, I hope Alec Ingold secures that status with Dolphins fans. Just watch him. Just watch him. No, and odds are you'll catch on to the ball pretty quickly because the ball's going to fall in line behind him and help make some stuff happen. Waffle Derek was definitely discussed this offseason, but having a player like Tyreek Hill on your roster buys you one win, just him alone. Isn't it a beautiful thing that we already got that game in week 2 on the road? Crazy. Feeling different about this season. Feeling different about this season. I want to agree with you, Derek. I think this weekend's game is going to tell you just how different this year is going to be. And you could tell, obviously, with the enthusiasm around the team from the fan base, the way the team won on Sunday, like there's a lot of people that are ready for things to be different this season. I'll leave it at that for now. I don't want to get too much into my calendar for the rest of the week prematurely here. Before we go any further, I got to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. As you gear up this fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame on your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the right candidates with the right skills, the right experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Our next one comes from JT. And he's already talking my language. He's talking about victory cigars. Hope you enjoyed that cigar on this last victory. Now that Tua has had his breakout game, my question is this. Tua just threw almost half of his season total in TDs from last year in one game, and Hill and Waddle seem unstoppable. If the game came down to it, would you trust the defense to make a stand or the offense to go down and score? It's obviously been the defense over the past few seasons, but I feel that Tua has shown the offense can be something to be dealt with. Thanks for the content and good vibes. Can you ask me this question again in 3 weeks? Serious. The sample size right now, it's 1-1, right? For this iteration of the team. You have Buffalo, Cincinnati, and the New York Jets. I feel like I can answer this question with firm confidence in 3 weeks. Right now, it's really hard to say. I thought Miami, in stretches of both games, moved the ball very, very, very well. I thought the defense buckled down very, very well. You gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown, 103 yards, 79-yard touchdown run to an NFL MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson, who at 230 pounds is still running like 4.4 something, the 40-yard dash. And a catch and run against zero coverage from Rashad Bateman, who logged the second fastest GPS time in the league last week. I don't think we should overlook the 2 fourth-down stops that the Dolphins defense made against Baltimore. I mean, you talk about critical swings, right? And if you guys didn't catch Draft Dudes, which is the podcast that I do with Joe Marino, he's the co-host of Locked On Bills, unfortunately. We're doing a crossover show for tomorrow, but we do Draft Dudes together for Draft Network, and we are best friends. We have nothing in common other than a love of football, and we even went so far as to choose the ultimate opposite teams to root for as our favorite team. But I went on yesterday, and Tuesdays we have a segment called Check the Tape. And I shouted out Zach Sealer as, I think, potentially a top 15, top 12, top 10 interior run defender in the NFL. Go back to 2020, Arizona Cardinals game. Last year, first 2 weeks already. Bunch of stuffs, bunch of penetration that bogged up plays and allowed the Dolphins to get off the field. Those 2 turnovers on downs win you this football game. So, yes, the explosive plays got to get cleaned up. There were no explosive plays against New England. We're going to have our hands full this week and next week. Or I guess twice in 5 days because you're playing on Thursday. So, right now, I'd still probably say defense, but give me another 3 games. So give me another 3 weeks. I can answer this with a little bit more confidence. MK. Fins for the freaking win. Again, love the podcast. Greatest game I've seen in years. What an adjustment from Coach McDaniel. Can you break down what the biggest change that took place in the second half was that helped us secure the amazing comeback win? I think there was a great point on this that was made by Tim Jenkins, which if you don't know Tim Jenkins, former quarterback, does film studies, has his own quarterback academy. He's awesome guy. And every Tuesday on his YouTube channel, he does Tua Tuesday. He does the Tua game tape. And he talked about the first interception that the Dolphins threw, the deep comeback to Tyreek Hill, deep hook to Tyreek Hill, and how that play was made in large part because Marcus Williams, the safety who made the interception, kind of squatted on the vertical stem from Tyreek Hill. And he said, if I'm a coach, I am making a note. He said, in a roundabout way, the interception was the best thing that could have happened in the Dolphins because it gave them the tell. It gave them the card and say, okay, the safeties, even when they have deep responsibility, are going to squat on Tyreek. They are not going to bail out of there unless they are lined up out there. So if you're at 12, 15 yards of depth, they're not going to turn and bail to 25. They're going to stay at 15 to 18. And if that's the case, you can anticipate letting one go. And you saw that twice. The second one was a straight up coverage bust. It is what it is. But the first one, the Ravens brought a fire zone blitz where they brought backers from Tua's front side. So Tua, as he gets to the top of his drop, and I'm doing it left-handed in person. It looks like I think it looks like I'm doing it right-handed. Forget it. The top of his drop, he fades away from the pressure and anticipates a throw and throws it downfield, and they run right by. And the safety is nosy. He's not respecting the vertical speed of Tyreek Hill, and he runs right past Marcus Peters. So I think that note, and Tim Jenkins pointed it out, is a great one. And it's a good example of things happen early in games and you earmark it and then you come back to it. And it paid big dividends for the Dolphins. Mike from Denmark wrote my question at halftime. Tua answers it. Now, here's the thing. When you leave reviews, it updates. So the only history of your question submission right now in the archives is, wow, wrote my question at halftime, Tua answers it. And so I will never know what your question was, Mike, unless you come clean. I don't know. I'll let you decide if you want to come clean next time you submit a show, or a show question, but it's always great to hear from you, Mike. Hope you're doing well. Power to the pod. And this came on the 15th. And it is in regards to Skylar Thompson. Great. Let's talk about this. This is obviously a little dated because it came before the Baltimore game, but still an important thing for us to touch base on. Need your help to talk to our Fins fans out of this take that Skylar should be the QB1. I know an optimistic take would be an understatement for the year. First-time head coach, GM who by most accounts is on the hot seat. If this is not a successful season, an owner who has broken rules. I understand Skylar was impressive in preseason, but that's against vanilla defenses with DBs that are currently on practice squads or selling insurance. Man, insurance salesmen catching bodies today on the show. The hate for Tua is so strong. Fans are obnoxiously clamoring for QB3 to take the reins after a win, referencing the Week 1 win against the New England Patriots. Kyle, help these souls who are with their poorly constructed hot takes. I'm going to be honest, I don't see a lot of this. I know social media is a platform that you can just drop a thought, right? Any thought that comes in, you can write it out and hit enter and life will go on. And I have kind of tried to stay focused on my own process of evaluating the team because I know there's people out there who don't like Chris Greer. I know there's people out there who don't like Tua Tagovailoa. I know there's people out there who don't like Jalen Phillips. And I try not to get too rolled into the weekly conversation pieces, right? And it certainly would seem as though this week has eased that. And it's good to know that 469 and 6 touchdowns is the bar for us to clear, for everybody to be on the same page. Say, hey, that was a good game for your quarterback. But as far as Skylar Thompson goes, in general, yes, he's extremely rough around the edges. There are a lot of nuanced things that running an offense you have to be capable of doing. And there's a lot of pre-snap recognition and disguises that he hasn't even been exposed to yet. Like, I'm kind of in the boat that we should all just be on the same page and applaud the coaching staff of the front office for, in everybody's opinion, getting it right and keeping Skylar on the 53. Because the team kept 2 last year. They didn't do that last year. That to me is a win. Like, let's just take that for what it is. And again, sample sizes are small. And I understand, like, as this unfolds, you're going to have reactions to every week. But I gotta at least be willing to let stuff play out. Right? So I try to stay out of the rat race in that regard. Not that may or may not help anybody feel better about kind of the discourse with Tua Tagovailoa or Jalen Phillips or anything else. But strong performance from Tua Tagovailoa in the second half. And I thought the first half, other than, quite frankly, other than the second interception, I thought was a pretty strong performance in the first half too. It was just obviously the unfortunate ambitious throw. There was an easier throw out there on the field to make. It's not like we're one hopping a bunch of throws or anything like that. And I saw incremental progress for Tua in some of the other areas of his game. The timing, these intermediate drive throws where you got to really put a lot of velocity on the throw, like dagger concepts, the over to Mike Gesicki that wrapped around that kind of rat in the hole defender in the middle of the field against man coverage. It was cover one rat or cover one robber, whatever you want to call it. Or Patrick Queen kind of sits right in the middle of the field and wants to clean anything up. And Mike Gesicki runs the route with the defender on his hip right around it. And Tua, with really good anticipation, put it just out of the outstretched hands and into the hands of Mike Gesicki. Those kinds of throws, like when those aren't good for Tua, when the ball kind of dies on him a little bit, like it did that dagger concept against New England, and Tyreek Hill couldn't dig it out, went low and tried to scoop that throw. That was an example for me of improvement, because that's a timing throw, believe it or not. This offense is very much predicated on rhythm and timing, but not just from how the routes complement each other, but also how the quarterback's drop gets him ready to throw when he needs to throw. You are marrying the depth of your drop with the primary target on the concept. So if you're going to run dagger, we need 5 and a hitch, right? And if you're going to run that, you need to be into the hitch when you're ready to drive the throw, with your feet in the ground, aligned at the target. And I thought against New England, a couple of those intermediate drive throws the drop was not on time, and therefore we had to hurry the process to throw. We couldn't get everything into the throw. Before we go any further, I got to tell you about our friends over at Bet Online. Bet Online is the number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Nobody will confuse me for the guy at the end of the commercials that sit here and quickly read through all the fine print, terms and conditions apply. So, sorry. Need another hit on caffeine before I get there. Review from Dan. Kyle, you are living every fan's dream. I enjoy your knowledge and opinions on the team we cheer for. Hearing about your game day experiences is something every fan should be jealous of. I love the fact that there's no offseason with your work with the Draft Network. Dan, thank you for following, Dan. And I am incredibly blessed. And I think the thing that I'm most thankful for is getting to go to some of these events, some of these games, and the people you meet along the way who are all, like, we're all in the same boat, right? We're all hungry for the Dolphins to bring back the standard for this organization that was set before a lot of us were even around. Right? I was born in 89. I wasn't even conscious to the game of football until, 91? Marino gets the big contract. Right? I don't have avid football memories until probably 95, 96, 97. Oh, I'm 6, 7, 8 years old. What I have known to be the Dolphins is not the Dolphins of this guy, Dan Marino, or these guys, the 17-0 team. But yet, we all avidly love them, whether we've been rooting for them for 3 years, 10 years, 12 years, 30 years, 50 years or more. And kind of seeing everybody from all different backgrounds who comes together on that stuff is just an amazing affirmation that this fan base is so incredibly underrated. And we're all hungry for it. And when the Dolphins deliver, whether that's hopefully this year, the kind of year that we think that they're capable of having, it's going to be so gratifying to so many people, and I can't wait for it. Gator Lawyer, season ticket holder since 79. Local sports talk radio guys are great. With a 40-minute drive to work, I don't have time for 20 minutes of commercials. Kyle's insight is spot on and has made game watching more enjoyable. Bless you. Let me know. I think I'm going to be in town for either Minnesota and Pittsburgh or just Pittsburgh. So, Gator Lawyer, if you have any way to reach out, I would cordially invite you to do so. Alaska Fin Fan. This was left on the 13th. So this was left a little over a week ago. Question: I'm cautiously optimistic about our quarterback play. In your opinion, is the awareness of pressure, particularly when in the grasp of a defender, coachable? Is it one of the downsides? It is one of the downsides that concerns me most. Hope it is not just a part of the player's DNA, so to speak. Yeah, I think there's a discipline component to this. And I will say this for Tua too. Like, obviously Tua got great protection against Baltimore. But the sack rate for Tua Tagovailoa continues to trend in the right direction. Make sure you can hear me pounding on the keys so you know I'm not just sitting here farting around. Tua Tagovailoa this season has been sacked 4 times in 2 games, 3 against the Patriots, once against Baltimore. His sack rate is 4.6% this season on 83 pass attempts. Okay, it's pretty good. His sack rate as a rookie was 6.5. His sack rate in 2021 was 4.9, and his sack rate through 2 games this year is 4.6. Obviously, a lot more explosive plays. Much more efficient as far as raw production numbers versus per attempt. His adjusted net yards per attempt is 8.66 in 2 games. In the previous 2 years, it was 5.4 and 5.81. So nearly 3 yards per attempt more for Tua through 2 games than what he was able to produce through his first 2 seasons. I say all that to say this. I think if you look across the league, and Joe Marino, who I'm going to name drop him again, did a study on Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow, the conversation around the 0-2 Bengals right now is, oh my goodness, the Bengals spent all of this money on the offensive line, and the offensive line is still broken. I don't know that that's necessarily true, because, Joe Burrow, he's talked about his aggressiveness as a passer. He talked quite a bit about being more ready to take a sack than he is to throw the ball away and live another down, because he doesn't want to concede the play. Well, Joe Burrow's sack rate across 3 seasons, the start of the 3rd season now, 32 sacks on 404 pass attempts in 10 games. So he threw the ball 40 times a game as a rookie in Cincinnati. His sack rate was 7.3%. Reminder, Tua right now is right around 4.5. Sack rate for Joe Burrow in 2021, 8.9%. Sack rate through 2 games this year, 12.7%. And with Joe, yeah, you're taking some L's up front, but you are also not executing and operating the offense. So for a player like Tom Brady, who historically has been incredibly difficult to sack, why is that the case? Well, it's because Tom Brady understands the structure of the play, and one of his best qualities is avoiding negative plays by making sure if we're hot or if we bust protection, I quickly identify it and get the ball down to my back and avoid a negative play. So it's just continuing to coach, avoid negative plays, avoid negative plays, avoid negative plays. And how do you get there? Well, I can try to extend and make a big play, or if it's, oh my God, they're bearing down on me, preempt and get to your back, right? And I think that's the thing for Tua. Now, I will give Tua credit for this. The Ravens rolled down a 4-week pressure and brought Patrick Queen and Kyle Hamilton up the A-gap against the Dolphins on the opening or early in the game-winning drive late in the game. And this was a play where the Dolphins were hot. They did not have the bodies to block the blitz. And Chase Edmonds steps up and he takes Kyle Hamilton, who's roaring down from the third level, and Patrick Queen is running free. And this is the throw to Tyreek that Tua quickly understands. I am seeing pressure. I am hot. There is a defender who is coming directly into my face. But I know where my receivers are. I know where my space is. I know that they ran cover one, and I know the free safety is 30 yards deep, right? Because now we forced them to respect this. So now the spacing's there. It's cover one. They brought every middle of the field defender on the blitz. I've got all this space. So I am just going to throw because I'm hot and avoid that. And that was a great play from Tua to encapsulate avoiding those situations. And if you're in the grasp, just go down, especially when you're winning by 2 touchdowns, which was the case in week 1 against the Patriots. So I hope that answers your question, Alaska. Shout out Danny. Shout out Marty. Shout out Blaze. Questions that I think are just, they were left on the 13th, so they didn't get into the queue for the last time we did the show. I want to acknowledge you guys and shout you guys out for leaving reviews on the show. But if obviously there's more Tua questions in here. There's a couple Tyreek Hill plays against New England. Just Tua and Tyreek not being on the same page. But Igons is the one that I want to finish with. You host multiple podcasts. I listen every day. Love the insight you provide. Thank you. Based on the week 1 action, which game moving forward would you pick the Dolphins to win in a survivor pool? What's your confidence percentage? Dial in on that Houston Texans game. That would be my advice. The Houston Texans are still one of the teams that are expected to be amongst the worst in football. Now, you want to make an argument for the Chicago Bears, you can do that, but that's also a road game versus Houston's at home. So if you want to save the Dolphins in a confidence pool, survivor pool, Dolphins coming out of the bye to play the Houston Texans. And we've seen this as a coaching staff that schemes stuff up pretty good. That's the one I'd lock in. I hope you guys keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Reminder, you got 4 more episodes this week. You got Crossover, you got Joe Rose, you got 2 on Friday, one of which will be constructing a game plan to try to defeat the Buffalo Bills, who railroaded each one of their first 2 opponents. So Miami, you got a stiff test ahead of you. We're going to talk about what that looks like for the Dolphins. So hit subscribe, follow along. Kyle Krabs, thanks for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Wednesday. Talk with you all.